Hey, there he is.
There I am.
Did you get a haircut?
Yeah, sort of.
Wow, yeah, looks wild.
Without a doubt, I did, man.
You got the Martin Scorsese glasses.
I know, and I was watching Scorsese's favorite Italian movie uh,
Italian job?
last night. Yeah, I'm studying Italian comedies right now. Hey,
Oh, wow.
buddy.
Italian comedy.
Yeah,
What's.
specifically from the 1950s and 60s. So I watched these two from 1962, like two famous Italian directors, and one's name was uh, Dini, and he has one called Il Sorpasso, which means somebody who passes you on the highway in Italy.
Okay.
And it's a road movie about sort of one guy's straight laced law student, the other guy's like a rogue, you know. But it's really strange, you know. Italian comedies aren't just comedies; they kind of veer into other genres, which is interesting. And then because I have the Criterion Channel, I'll sort of watch the movie and then I watch all the documentary, all the interviews, all that kind of stuff to learn about it.
Yeah, is
Uh,
there is there like specific mannerisms in 1950s Italian comedy that stands out?
a little bit. One of the things that stood out to me that was right is just Italian filmmaking, but at least in this movie, what they'll do is the camera will veer off to a moment that's happening with a couple of extras that can even
Right.
be silent, or like when the train is taking away and the main characters are like goodbye, goodbye, its camera will just stay static and you'll see other people saying goodbye and one, woman going, yeah, and it's going to rain, so make sure that you use your umbrella. And he's like, I wouldn't bring the umbrella if I wasn't going to use it, okay? And it's just these like very funny kind of idiot. And I had never thought about that. And what's his name? Alexander Payne was saying that he calls that sloppy borders. Because
Okay.
they interview these great directors about these movies, the movies that influence them.
Yeah.
So really, the Criterion Channel is really like just a way to have a master class in cinema on anything that you could almost think of. If it's like an important piece of cinema, it's on there.
Yeah.
So I'm watching this other one called Mafiosa, and that's with a famous Italian comedic actor of that time named Lordi.
Okay.
Lordi. And that one's pretty funny too. And it's a lot of sort of fish out of water, but a lot of they were worried that Italian films wouldn't do well in do well. And this is the podcast, right? Are we
Yeah,
doing the
this is it.
podcast?
Yeah, we're doing it now.
Right.
It's really
So
just like a conversation. Yeah.
so it's so they were worried in Italy that the everybody was smoking them when they talked about film. So I'm going to smoke clove
Yeah, it
cigarettes.
helps.
Like a teenage girl, but
You look like a
they
SoundCloud rapper.
they were all sort of talking. Yeah, exactly. I'm more of a Spotify guy, a Spotify guy, I guess you call it.
Spot a guy. Wow.
Um,
Nice.
and so, they were worried in Italy that it was going to be too nationalistic, the comedy, because it's a lot about like this person's from Lombardy and this person's from Sicily, and the mafioso one is a guy from Milan who lives in Milan goes to see his family in Sicily, and it's kind of the culture clash of that,
Sure, sure.
and so they were worried like who's going to get that. But it turned out a lot of these films did really well because people were like, oh, so that's what it's like in Italy. People aren't
Right.
stupid. It's like if you live in Spain and you see Dumb and Dumber, you're not like, I don't understand the hick that's like kick his ass, Seabass. I don't.
Sure,
We don't
sure.
have anything similar to that. So it's like, you know, films that take place in the South in the United States, films that take place, and then I think there was an argument which was, well, but everybody knows American cinema, and I was like, yeah, but they didn't in the beginning.
Right.
If that's how they got the whole thing, then when the 1930s and 40s ended, they'd be like, I thought everybody lived in Manhattan.
Sure,
Didn't
sure.
everybody live in a penthouse in Manhattan? I
Right.
thought that was the whole thing, and they all sang in America constantly. It's like people are smarter than not being able to get the idea of something being nationalistically funny, but not so esoteric that you can't relate to it.
Sure.
And the mafioso one's really, really funny, and I don't know a ton of, but even in Il Sorpasso, a cop is from the Lombardy region, and so the guy takes on his accent and tries to relate to him, and all. And it's just like that's pretty easy to follow along with. So those two, and then tonight I might watch AFI is doing a they have a guess the movie every day, and I guessed it wrong, and I haven't seen White Heat. I thought it was Public Enemy that they're saying was number 4 on the top 10 gangster films.
Okay.
So I've been enjoying those two, and also watched some noir recently that is old, 1942,
and
just very specifically during the war.
And the Italian movies, that was just specifically because, was it Martin Scorsese you said recommended these movies? Or said that?
No, that happened out of the blue.
Oh,
in fact, I thought it was funny because we watched Pretend It's a City with Fran Lebowitz, who's this famous New York writer.
Yeah.
And Scorsese did this docuseries, and it is so funny. And you do not have to live in New York to get it, but it is real funny if you live in New York. And so that was just happenstance. Actually, Kate has a friend who used to be married to this famous actor. I worked with his son, Vincent Cassel, in I think he was Roberto Cassel or something Italian.
Mm-hmm.
And but she's French, and her son's a French actor, and he was in Underwater. And she gave us this book called Comedy in the Italian Style.
Oh, wow.
And it's all the 50s through 1986.
Okay.
It's actually, it gets into the 80s. But, the 60s, they were still doing, these two films are from 62, and it was all still black and white. So while America was starting to get into the Technicolor 60s and 70s, they were still making movies in black and white. I found this out too, which is really weird. Because they don't really film in studios, it wasn't cinema verite enough, they would dub a lot of the scenes, sometimes the entire movie.
Oh, wow.
So they would act out everything and do all, but they could improvise, whatever, and they would go back and ADR the entire movie, which is crazy.
Holy crap.
Well, and ADR is so hard. Johnny Depp is famously terrible at ADR.
Okay.
And he gets so frustrated and walks around smoking and angry. But I was always very good at ADR, and people would say whoa, you're really quite good at it. I was like, well, I do a lot of voiceover.
Right.
And in voiceover, you don't always have to match, but you're doing the same line over and over again 20 times in different ways.
Right.
So if I'm watching me, I can figure out how to give you 10 different options that also match.
Yeah.
But that's crazy, the idea that you would do 10 scenes in a film and they wouldn't have recorded any of the audio.
Yeah, that's insane. So watching movies from the 50s, Italian comedy movies, does the humor still stand up today?
Yeah, it's very different though. Il Sorpasso is very famous for having a resurgence in the 70s and 80s and just becoming this gigantic hit international. It's a huge hit in Argentina, which is where I lived, and I speak Castellano, and so I know a lot about actually Argentinian film. And but Il Sorpasso has sort of a weird tragic ending, and there are moments that are really melodramatic in a positive way. They're just sad little moments along the way. And so they didn't really stick to the genre of comedy. They kind of bounce around and do different, different elements of each genre. And in Italy, it was mostly commercial productions and then auteur productions, and then sort of what we used to have as B movies. Mm-hmm. And those were very genre specific. And the only real genre that came out of Italy that was defined were the spaghetti westerns.
Right. Yeah,
that was a big deal for a while.
Yeah, when it comes to global different culture comedy movies, does there seem to be a base of humor that stands out in everything? Is there a constant through all humor?
Yeah, I mean, slapstick works because it's not. It's also why circus, and I can perform in Paris and Norway and stuff, because anything that doesn't have language is, you don't need to speak the language to get it.
True.
So, there's slapstick in this one too. He tries to pull out he tries to open the door, and the door handle comes off, so the straight-laced law student is stuck in the bathroom, but he's too shy to yell for help, so he's in there for half an hour.
Okay.
And that kind of that's like a little bit of slapstick, but then very culturally specific, making fun of this sort of puritanical, shy Italian type who's sort of representative of the church.
Yeah.
Italy was sort of the mafia, and then the Vatican. You know, it's kind of has both sides of that coin of humanity.
Yeah, speaking of circus, kind of the style of your performance, which you could do with the physicality, I think you mentioned the phrase philosophical circus about your own act. Yeah, what does that mean? What's the philosophical
it's a philosophy circus?
Okay, what does that mean?
Philosophy circus. I'll also say real quick, though, for your listeners and watchers, I'd never seen a really funny German film.
Okay.
They just don't do great. There's some really funny Chinese films. There's this film called it's like it's something that's like Duck Walk Run or something, and it's about a Peking duck guy whose restaurant is being challenged by a fried chicken, like super rich corporation thing.
Sure.
And that was really funny. I mean, I was laughing the entire time. But German films don't tend to be that funny. But then there was this German film called Goldfish, Goldfish, and it's about a guy who, I guess it is German in some way. It's about a guy who gets paralyzed, and he goes to this sort of rehab clinic, and then he's actually a money launderer.
Oh, wow.
And the only way he can get to his money is to take this kind of ragtag group of, there's a retarded girl, and there's a guy who's like clearly autistic.
Okay.
And then there's a woman who's like a huge alcoholic. And then there's, so it's just all these people have these problems, and it's just such a funny road movie for them to figure this out. And it really kind of makes fun of the pretentiousness and severity of German sensibilities. Okay. And that I was cracking up. I think that's I still haven't shown that one to Kate.
Yeah. You think
but as far as the philosophy circus of it all, it's like I started to realize, I was like, well, I'm not going to really talk about, I do talk about ethnicity, and there's some social satire. Mm-hmm. But I realized that I was sort of an absurdist that did observational comedy. And that was my first Comedy Central special. Mm-hmm. And then there was some of that in the HBO special, but then there was also very much there were some real philosophical things in there about philosophy of time and stuff like that. And so I began to really, and you did a little bit of this in the act about Justice being blind, but she can smell.
Yeah.
Money.
Yeah, thanks.
And so you have stuff that's like, okay, wait, he's definitely saying something in addition to it being funny. And that's just a hard line to walk. So what I try and do is have the philosophy have some absurdist elements.
Yeah.
Mix that in with observational stuff, or just plain absurdist.
Yeah.
And then the circus is there because it's kind of, no one else is really doing that.
Yeah, it definitely feels like you have your own lane. You have your own market that you've kind of created. And as far as the philosophy stuff too, if you're going to make people think, I feel like you have to work that much harder to make them laugh as well. Because
I always believe it should be funny first.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I never loved Mark Maron because some people it's like about what they're thinking, and then if it happens to be funny, good for you, but I'm so smart, you should be listening to the substance of what I'm saying.
Right.
And it's weird because I also, when I make films, the 2 Sundance shorts that I did were, they're comedies of substance is what I call them. And one is called Successful Alcoholics. So that's,
nice.
That's a double entendre that I didn't even plan to have. And so I'll consistently be making notes, just beware.
No, what are you making?
So I just make notes of like,
okay.
I make think of something that I have to do, but I think that it needs to be comedy and then have substance, not substance and then it has elements that are comedic.
No, I agree.
That's not particularly interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, people don't really go to comedy clubs with the idea of I want to come to learn something. They're coming to laugh.
No, certainly not. And there's one other kid that I work with who's like this incredible juggler.
Okay.
His name is Marcus Monroe. But he's sort of a juggler who also happens to be really, really funny.
Sure.
And then when we started doing comedy again, everybody, he tours with me. He's coming with me to Cleveland, and but I said to him, I said, you can't juggle because I'm juggling, and that's a big part of my act.
Yeah.
And it's not as impressive if I do it after you juggle,
Right?
Because then they see this great juggler who can juggle 5 clubs and 9. I can juggle knives, but he can do a 6-foot unicycle and stuff like that.
Wow.
And so it was this great thing that happened, which is I made him stop juggling and just be a stand-up comic.
Sure.
And he really appreciated it because he was like, I don't think I ever could have let go of this crutch,
Yeah, I mean, if you're forced to lose one of your strongest things, it's got to make the other things stronger, like losing one of your senses.
Yeah, and so he started making because he wasn't getting much work during the pandemic. I mean, none of us were.
Sure.
But he really started making Facebook videos and TikTok videos, and he kind of cracked the code on how to get a lot of. So he started making a couple $1,000s a video if they worked.
Nice. That's
But
great.
he's a guy. I don't know if you've ever been on Facebook TV. It's like so annoying, but it is very addictive if they do like prank war and like
Yeah.
watch it. Let's see if and then they put things up like now to add the flour to be all over the top. Let's see if he wakes up.
Sure.
And then you do it, and it's like didn't wake up. I wonder if he will when we splash the cold water on him. And they have to be a certain length.
Okay.
And so Marcus started doing that and getting how to do that. They're all fake. He did a fake one where two twins meet for the first time.
Okay.
And then he did one. Some of them were like pretty. They're pretty morally questionable.
Oh yeah.
As to if people think it's real, he
Right.
really is tricking them.
Yeah.
But the ones he does is like he took a flight and he had his wife put on a wig in front of him, and then he pretended like he was getting in the way of his movie that he was watching.
Sure.
So he took scissors and cut the hair off of the wig, so
Oh
it looks
my
like
God.
he's really cutting the hair off.
Yeah.
And then he got his wife to sort of on the way out be like, my hair feels weird or something
my
to
God.
the pilot.
Yeah.
And throughout the video it goes, is she awake? And then it like turns around, it's like, nope, still sleeping. Looks
Yeah.
like it's time to get rid of more of the hair.
Oh my
And he just
God.
keeps sort of bringing you along. And it was really smart. But what he did, the reason I bring all this up is that he did this really funny thing. It was so funny. He decided he would fake it and make it look like he cooked a steak in the toilet of an airplane bathroom.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah.
with like a sterno and an aluminum foil pan and all that stuff. And, the sterno was fake. It was a blue light.
Yeah.
And what he did is he cooked the steak at home on one side, and then he left the other side raw.
Sure.
And then, so he puts the steak on. You see it's raw, and he added sizzling noises. Then he turns it over. Then he had another steak that he then put on the plate and took to his seat and then started eating.
Wow.
And the TikTok video went super viral,
Yeah.
and it was picked up all over the world. And Delta Airlines banned him.
Oh my
He's on the
God.
no-fly list.
Wow.
So and Southwest threatened to ban him. And so what he's doing now actually is his closer is he put together a video of kind of this happening. He videoed his call to Delta Airlines, which was really smart.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did a montage of all the different articles that came up, like stupid TikTok user cook steak on airplane, like
Wow.
watch this idiot cook a steak on an airplane. He has long hair, so one of them is like, crazy woman cooks steak on airplane.
Nice.
So that, of course, gets a huge laugh. So
Yeah.
that's his closer, and it's great. And I think it's gotten him to sort of say, because he's a really good video editor.
Yeah.
And so I think it's gotten him to sort of say, wow, maybe this is a strength that I have that I haven't explored.
Yeah.
Not exploited, really, but
it's 6.
yeah, that was the word I was looking for. Some of his stuff, you're like, is this exploitation of the viewer? But so I think he's going to explore that a little bit more. But he's really funny. He's got weird one-liners, and he's got some bits that are pretty good about his life. He's married to a woman who's 15 years older than him.
Okay.
But he has a stepdaughter who's like 4 years younger than him.
Wow.
And so his jokes are great. We're trying to figure out how to get people to believe that, because a lot of people don't.
Sure.
But his jokes are like, people are like, so you have a stepdaughter, is that weird? Do you guys get along? Is she hot?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. Yeah, so it's like, he's got sort of weird stuff that also is autobiographical.
Yeah.
So he's becoming a better comic, and it's been fun for me to see him have to do that. And I think when I tour with him, because he still does cruise ships and festival stuff, I think when I tour with him, I'm just going to say, you got to figure out how to get 20 and build that 20 into 45 so that you could actually be a stand-up comedian.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like faking scenarios for videos, yeah, like social media algorithms really like intensity and tense situations. Like there's something about just this weird, awkward tenseness that we just love so much.
Yeah, and sort of, it's all kind of prank-ish type. It's either got to be a prank or something crazy that you're doing, or it's got to really pull your heartstrings. Look at this.
For sure.
Look at this bear and this goose that became friends, and now, turtle saves hamster from certain death by pit bull.
Dude, I always
those things also get huge hits.
Yeah, I always had the idea to make a website, which is just a bunch of different buttons of different animals, and you just click different buttons, and it shows you videos of those animals like hanging out together. I think people would lose it.
Yeah, I think
that.
that's really funny.
Oh, it'd be so much fun.
I can't. It's funny that he said that, because he's like, I'm doing that, and you think, oh man, well, he's making money doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, I couldn't do that. I can't do a thing where I'm like, check out what I did. It's just, that's not my lane, and that's not something that would fit my kind of persona or where I am in show business.
Sure.
So it's fun, because he had a friend who I guess got really jealous because he told his friend how much money he was making off these videos, which is never a good idea.
Right.
And then his friend, got really jealous because he was like, well, you're making rent doing these videos and they're not even real. And Marcus is like, I tell people they're not real. On the channel, it says this is for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been interesting to see him sort of do that. And then I kind of actually was almost, I did a show, this was a long time ago.
Yeah. And I mean,
just like, maybe I'll club juggle. Yeah, like anything's not a long time ago. Maybe I'll do some club juggling also, or maybe juggle knives or something like that. And I did it, and at the end, I was like, "What did you think, Kate?" And she said, "It's too much juggling."
Okay.
She's like, "You're not a juggler. They didn't come to see you juggle. They aren't like." Wow, TJ's really a great juggler. The only thing they need to do is go, oh, Jesus, he can juggle?
Yeah.
That's what it has to be.
Right.
And so I have shaker cups, which is a different type of juggling that's pretty interesting. So I might do something with that at some point once the cigar boxes have maybe gotten to a place where I used to do this 5-ball juggling thing, but then I got too good at juggling 5 balls, so I was sort of pretending to not be good at it.
Right.
And I'm getting there with the cigar boxes. So I either need to do a lot more impressive stuff with cigar boxes. Right. Thing is, though, because these juggling bits have to be comedic first, they really shouldn't be longer than about 3 to 5 minutes. Ever.
Right. No, for sure.
You shouldn't do an entire routine. And Marcus said to me, he goes, what if you got glow-in-the-dark clubs?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. And he's like, with the shaker cups, would you do something to music? And I was like, oh, that's what jugglers do. I have to find an angle to it where people kind of the Shaker Cup thing that I had is I talk about how really easy things look very cool.
Yeah.
And very hard things don't look that cool.
Okay.
But that's been tough to work out because when you tell an audience something's hard and you fuck it up a couple times and then you get it, they clap no matter what.
Sure.
And so I still have to go, but it didn't look that cool. Right. So I have to get good enough at it that I fuck it up a couple times and then I can do it a couple times and make it work to be like, see how much less cool that looks than this, which is so easy.
Yeah.
So I'm still sort of working on that, but that requires a lot of. The thing is, I love juggling, but I'm so busy that I don't practice juggling a lot. In fact, if I come up with a bit, I'll just do it on stage, and that's how I get better at it. It's just how many times I've done it on stage.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to hear you talking about like the evolution of your act, and it makes me think about the evolution of comedy in general. Like comparing 1950s Italian comedy movies to a guy on a plane doing a prank of cutting someone's hair off. It's like there's still elements of slapstick in both, but like just conceptually those things are so far apart where it's like, you know, that's something we never could have imagined back then. So, you know, in another 20, 50 years, there's probably going to be some other medium of entertainment we can't even imagine yet.
Yeah, my cousin is working, I don't know what it is. He's working on some Facebook show where real actors interact with AI characters.
Okay.
And so I think there'll be something like that where
automation.
The comedy is like that the robot's stupid and doesn't get it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
it's like,
for sure.
Like the Chinese, they don't really have stand-up comedy.
Okay.
Or at least didn't for a really long time. They have what's called a double act. Okay. And that's when one Chinese guy is really smart and funny and quick and fast and kind of a Groucho Marx almost. And then the other Chinese guy is really stupid. Okay. And it's like, and usually fat and like all the things that Chinese people think are so funny.
Yeah.
And make fun of people about. And there was this very famous double act comedian, but it wasn't like Abbott and Costello or Laurel and Hardy or a lot of the American double acts because both of those people, like Arbuckle and Keaton and stuff, those guys were good apart, but you couldn't just put Arbuckle with somebody who wasn't Buster Keaton because Buster Keaton was equally as funny.
Sure.
In this Chinese double act, this guy would just replace the people. Okay. It was cheaper for him to have a different guy in each town when he toured.
Yeah.
And all the guy has to go is, huh? What do you mean?
Sure.
I don't have fish in my pants.
Yeah.
Oh, you meant I was fishing around in my pants. It's that type of stuff.
Perfect.
And so I think that was a really weird thing culturally as well. But yeah, I don't know. I'm interested in kind of the universality and whatever has staying power of comedy.
Yeah, I mean, and again, everything.
I really like W.C. Fields. Sorry?
Yeah, I was going to say, and everything eventually comes full circle. I mean, the same way with style and fashion. It's like, you know, right now we're going in this super technological area where we're getting, you know, super intense with computers and, you know, cyborg stuff, Oculus, whatever. So, you know, I think like the Inhuman stuff, it'll become retro and then like intimate shows, and then it'll become like, you know, private performers in your home will be like the rage or something. So, you know, I feel like the further away we go, eventually we're going to go right back to that again, just, you know, just reimagined with like new tools.
Well, that's why I left. And all the international stuff reminds me of, I had some kid in Norway, and Stavanger was like, the club was like, can he open for you? And I was like, yeah, fine. I mean, I'm not bringing an opener, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, so are you doing comedy in Norwegian or are you going to do it in English? He's like, no, I'm going to do it in English. I'm trying to, you know, get better in English. He's talking like that.
Yeah.
It's like, great. And he got up there and he was the most racist fucking guy I've ever
God.
in my life. and he bombed.
Yeah.
He really, really bombed. But because everybody speaks English there.
Yeah.
So he's doing this English act and he's like, I go into, you know, the gas station and I say, hey, you know, do you have, and I realize it's dark. And so I go and I realize he's a black. He has a black. He's a black. And I couldn't see him until he smiled. And then I say, oh, you're black. Maybe you want some watermelon.
Oh my God.
And it was just racist things that
Yeah.
I don't know if he thought that Americans think that that's funny or something.
Right.
But I mean, if that's his act in English, I think
Yeah.
that's probably his act in Norwegian.
Yeah.
He fucking bombed. I mean, also, I guess that's my Scandinavian crowd, so they weren't coming to hear some guy be like, I don't know. We don't even have that in our world at all anymore.
No.
Like redneck comedy isn't even like.
Yeah. Like you got to
Yeah.
be at least clever a little bit. Like you can't. Yeah. You
Or
can't,
not a white Norwegian guy.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh man. Yeah.
But
That's.
I left. Go ahead.
That is interesting to see, like, someone's disconnect when they do stand up, because a lot of people for the first time and stuff, you know, brand new comedians, they don't realize that their thoughts are just totally wrong. Like, they'll get up and say something they think is totally acceptable, and then they see for the first time ever that their thoughts are just absolutely terrible.
And that's why people start out and they're so dirty, or they're doing jokes that maybe their friends would laugh at, but
Yeah.
a general audience is like, ugh, no.
Yeah,
no.
it is great, the humbling.
Assume that we're smarter than them.
Yeah,
But so I got out of, actually left film and television, really specifically Silicon Valley, in part because I thought, you know, people are getting screen fatigue.
okay,
And so live performance is going to start to become more and more popular.
right,
And I was right. There was a serious uptick in live comedy and live performance in general right up until the pandemic.
yeah, it's
So
true.
each year I was doing better and better with, you know, not just money, but like general audience demand, people doing shows, just the clubs were saying more people are coming to shows in general.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and it was like that all got fucked out the window.
Yeah, you already integrate like a whole bunch of cool, you know, circus type stuff into your act, and you know these different mediums of making people laugh. Is there like some super ambitious, like, you know, is there some sort of ideas you haven't been able to do yet that are just really grand that you can imagine doing?
Well, I could see myself at one point. I think this will happen. There's this show called Slava's Snow Show by the most famous Russian clown in the
Okay.
world,
Yeah.
and like more famous than any other clown in the world. And
Even Bozo.
he,
huh?
yeah, internationally, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And so he, right. I mean, you try and think of clowns in the United States, and it's like Bozo and
Ronald McDonald.
Krusty the Clown, I guess.
Yeah.
Krusty, yeah, right. Ronald McDonald. He wasn't that funny.
No. Yeah, he's mostly just selling burgers.
And those burgers, you know, Grimace was always the comedy in that whole.
Yeah, he was.
But I and the hamburger. I mean, obviously, but you know, this guy does this clown show that's completely mute.
Oh wow.
And it was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. And he does this thing at the end where these huge machines in the ceiling that you don't even see start to drop white ticker tape, like just little pieces that big
Yeah.
of white tissue paper.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's snowing. The
Okay.
entire, it's thousands and thousands of, it just looks like an actual snowstorm. So people are catching them and throwing them at each other. Then as they're doing that, he releases gigantic balls, not like beach balls, but like kind of like beach balls, but gigantic. And it takes like 5 people to push them up in the air.
Yeah.
And so people are playing ball with each other in this fake snowstorm and throwing fake snow at each other. And that's just, and it's an incredible, it's like his masterpiece. And ever since I saw that, and even before that, I'd love to do something in New York. I don't know if it needs to be on Broadway or off Broadway or whatever, but something in New York that is a long running clown show where I just do clown.
Yeah. Well, what you
Yeah.
described kind of sounds like the Blue Man Group stuff.
Exactly, but no drums.
Yeah.
Ugh.
No yeah.
Yeah, it's you did Blue Man Group. Yeah, I would say actually they're probably the most famous sort of clown show outside of Slava Snow Show,
Yeah.
and they're really really funny, you know. But they have a very specific type of thing, and what I would be doing is much more old school clown stuff. It's not music. It's not But I went and saw Blue Man Group, and it was so funny. Afterwards, the guys, they took pictures, and I went up and said hello, and it was so interesting. One of the Blue Men was like, "Hey, I'm a huge fan of yours. Thank you so much for coming to the show. I thought that was so awesome. I saw you in the crowd." And I thought that was hilarious because it was such a higher compliment than if, like, trying to think of a good example of somebody's like a huge comedian that would be like if I don't know, he's not alive anymore, but if like George Carlin came up to me and was like, "Oh, dude, you are so funny," or even if Chappelle was like, "Oh my God, you're so funny," and he's been really nice, and he's kind of, you know, he said things like that. But like to hear Louis C.K., who I think is one of the best in the world, be like, "You were so funny in Deadpool," is awesome. That's really cool.
For sure.
But for one of the Blue Men to be like, "Dude, I'm a huge fan," I was like, "Really?" Oh shit! Hold on! Oh my God! Be still my beating heart. It's Kate. Get my smelling salts quickly.
Nice.
You know, I mean, it was so cool because what he does, I so very much respect.
Yeah.
But I respect Louis C.K. It's just I don't do what he does. You know.
Right.
But on the flip side of that, when someone like Andy Kindler says I'm really funny, that just blows my fucking mind. I mean, is just so great because I just think he is so funny.
Yeah, he's great.
But yeah, I'm interested in clown, and I would like to sort of get a theater and do a really substantial clown show because I know a lot of the old clown skits. You know,
do you know?
Like I just know them. I've done them before, and in clown.
Do you know where your interest in clown came from?
Well, yeah. I mean, I always thought they were interesting growing up, but it wasn't really the circus. I don't know. I just like physical comedy. I loved Harpo Marx.
Okay.
You know, that guy's essentially a clown. And the Slava Snow Show thing made me get more and more interested. But I was a student of silent film comedy in college.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew a lot about Harold Lloyd and, Buster Keaton and Chaplin, but like Harry Langdon and Fatty Arbuckle and kind of lesser known people. And I watched a lot of that. And so I just learned a lot from that. And then I've always been good silently on stage. One of the things that I can get really big laughs off of like finishing something and then just kind of looking at somebody without saying anything.
Yeah.
and that, that's something that I'm able to take a lot of space and enjoy the silence. And this thing that I just wrote, a lot of it is silent film comedy.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot of, it's a guy alone. He's the only person that works at a movie theater during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So it's me alone a lot.
Yeah. It's like I Am Legend,
sort of
the comedy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's right. Exactly. And it's all in one space, and it's very miniature moments and really small sort of pieces of comedy. One thing is like one of the movie posters is askew, and I like try and put it back, and then as I start to walk away, it goes back to being askew.
Yeah.
I go back and I push it, and then it goes askew, and then I push it all the way, like leave it far away, and then it just slowly goes back to where it would be right, and then I'm like, okay, and then it goes to the side again.
Perfect.
And then eventually I just pull it off and I smash it and totally destroy the thing, and then I look around, and the audience and I am reminded I'm the only one here to clean this up. There's no janitors. So now I've created this mess for myself.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of bits like that,
Yeah. I mean, that's timeless humor right there.
Yeah, it's like he plays, he's throwing the piece of popcorn in the air to catch it, and he keeps doing that. He doesn't do very well. And then he's, no one else is there, so he just throws the whole large tub in the air.
Yeah.
And tries to catch what he can, you know? And so it's just stuff like that. It's just like very, very fun to me, and it's very universal.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool to make evergreen content that, maybe in 50 years somebody will be watching this project and going, it still stands up. It's still perfect.
Well, and it might also be from this desire for me to have the comedy I'm doing be universal. So it's got to be funny to everybody. I'm not trying to get people to walk out of the show.
Yeah, why is that important
What's
to you?
that?
Why is that important to you to have your humor that way?
Well, it kind of relates back to. So I studied psychology with a concentration in persuasion theory and social influence in college, and my mother is a psychologist. And I always thought, because I was really good at psychology, and I always thought, and it also was going to be easy. I like took the AP psychology test in high school and I aced it. I was like the only person that got everything right.
Sweet.
So then I was like, oh, it'll be an easy thing to study, and it'd be a job that I'd be good at.
Mm-hmm.
But I also joined the comedy troupe, and I was doing theater and comedy and improv in high school. And about sophomore year, I realized, okay, there's two options here. And this is sort of an altruistic mission that I think has made for my success. I can either be a psychologist and help maybe 500 or 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're really lucky, 1,500 people, but I'll affect them positively, but it'll be profoundly positive. It'll change their whole life, ideally.
Sure.
And then I thought, but if I do comedy, I can sort of have a positive effect on people, maybe just for 30 seconds if it's an ad, or an hour and a half if it's a movie, or whatever, depending on what the medium is.
Yeah.
But I can do that for millions and millions and millions of people, and all over the world. And so that seemed much more, because philosophically, from an ethical standpoint, I'm a utilitarian, which is like mostly John Stuart Mill, but it's the right thing to do is make the most amount of people happy. And so you do everything because of that. Yeah. So if lying will make 1,000 people have, it's in that school of thought, murder is completely okay if it's Hitler, you know?
Sure.
It's actually the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, especially with your style of comedy too, to choose that, it is also inspirational in a sense, the way we talked about, you're kind of in your own lane. I mean, people love to see people like them succeed. You know, it inspires them. It shows them that they can be successful too. And because you have such a niche, and, you know, you're an absurdist observational dude, you know, that's not very mainstream, yet you've turned it kind of mainstream and universal. So, you know, people who might think they're an outsider, who have like, you know, this knowledge of the same stuff you have, to see you do it, it is like, oh wow, you know, anything can be done. We can all do whatever we want to do. So
I appreciate that. Yeah, and I didn't even really think of it like that. I think you're right. There must be some people who, even if it's not, I want to do comedy and my sense of humor is weird, but it's, I want to be a writer, but I want to write about stuff that other people aren't writing about. Then yeah, if there can be some sort of positive influence with respect to that, then that's great. And then I just also think, you know, I work really, 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 really hard. Yeah. And I also have gotten a lot of success, which I'm very fortunate and thankful for.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that is I was never in it to be famous, and never interested really in being successful. And I didn't really care about people's approval and affection. And we talked about this, but in film, I kind of was always like, well, I'm a stand-up comic. So yeah, if I don't get this part, then it doesn't really matter to me that much.
Right.
And that was addictive to Hollywood, that there was a guy who actually seemed like he didn't give a fuck. And I was thinking about this and was going to write about this just recently, that it's not that I don't care. I absolutely care a lot, sometimes too much. It's that what people don't understand is that I don't give a fuck. So I've had a lot of people that I've worked with, basically everybody I've worked with, you know, I get along with all of them. But I've had some people I think frustrated with me because they're like, how can he do this and not give a fuck? How can he get this part or be in this movie and not even care? He doesn't even care.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I care, especially when but to get the part, to continue to ascend, it is very addictive to meet somebody who actually doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what nihilism is this healthy understanding that none of this really matters and you create your own meaning.
Yeah.
And if you really, really believe that, then a lot of the things that people worry about, status and stuff like that, sort of falls away. You know, people liking you, having a lot of friends, those things become less important than your work or, in my case, your marriage, your relationship with sort of your really close friends, those things. And the rest of it is about thinking about human beings at a broader level. And I always try and remind myself, like I was in Houston, I sold out. It was half capacity, but it's still, it's still like 1,000 people that are taking their night and spending it with me. And so they're very, very important to me. And there's a lot of comics who like kind of don't give a shit, or they're like, they're stupid, they didn't get it. And I've never had that mentality. Right. I never will.
Yeah, I mean, when the work can stand on its own, I mean, it's obvious how much effort you're putting into it. And then it brings me back to the other concept we had talked about down in Tampa, which was that with success comes leverage. So it's like when you've proven your talent, you have the ability to kind of expand in whatever direction you want, because you've kind of proven a point already.
And the stuff that you've done in the reality space, it really, your attitude is this really like, I don't give a shit and I'll sort of do whatever because I think it's funny.
Sure.
But it's also really jovial. I think you said this to me about how you can tell, people have said you can really tell that I'm having fun on stage.
Yeah.
And so what came through in some of those clips that I watched of yours was that none of it's malevolent. None of it is like attention grabby. None of it is like, I want to be famous. It all comes across as, I don't really give a shit about any of this.
Yeah.
And I really don't give a fuck. So I'm going to do what I think is funny and have fun with other people. And I, hopefully, and what I'm expecting is that you, the audience, will enjoy my character in this world. Because it's not, I'm the same way, but as you can see from this conversation, you're not like a always on attention grabby, I need to be the center of everything guy. You're a pretty like mellow, think about things. I mean, you've got strange abstract paintings in the background, but at the same time, Fast and the Furious is there. So
That's right.
You can't possibly take yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you are doing things that are contemplative and artistic, and at least take some thinking and some substance. And I think that comes across on stage with your act, but also with the other stuff that you're doing. Even the Jesus thing is like so ridiculous, but it's it's so funny because you're not like, it is like, what if I did stand up as Jesus? What if I go into the and that I think that's really fun, and I think people really like that because it's the difference between that and like playing pranks on people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I at the root of all my stuff, I want to make people laugh. I want to give people a good time. And then also, like, I have a journalistic side. Like, I I'm kind of obsessed with the truth. And by truth, I mean, like, motivation, which is like, why is this happening? Why does somebody do this? And I think, that's where the mellow stuff would come in and the listening stuff. And, man, I think you definitely have that kind of same sensibility as well, where it's like, I
still have that pen you gave me. But, you do man on the street stuff, right? I mean, you kind of do... You'll interview people and kind of want to get to the bottom of them, but that also comes from being interested in other people.
Yeah. And
a lot of comedians, but especially a lot of actors, are not really that interested in other people. Great actors are.
Okay.
I think great actors and movie stars tend to be, even if they're very self-focused, movie stars tend to be really aware of other people and wanting to know about people and asking questions about people. I mean, I really think I got a lot of that from Kristen Stewart. She was really interested in me, wanted to know all this stuff about me, and I was really interested in her, wanting to know all this stuff about her.
Yeah.
And it was less, our conversations would be less like, you were great in that movie, or what. It was much more about business and career architecture. And then really asking about the other person. I said, well, is your family jealous of the money that you made, or how's this affected your family? Because when you're a movie star, there are certain things that you can't really relate to anybody about except for other movie stars.
Sure.
And it has to be this idea of just these things, this type of fame, the way the rest of the community sees you, the celebrity of it, how it affects your family. All those things are very specific for a movie star compared to a theater actor.
Right.
Or an independent film darling.
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
or a director or a whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's always been interesting for me in all my work in film, is kind of coming across and being able to relate to those people and learn from them and about them. And that's much more engaging to me. I'm much more drawn to that than talking to somebody about their process or,
Yeah.
or what did you think about.
well, this
And you
makes me
find out
think
that guys
of,
like Josh Brolin are.
I was gonna say this makes me
Yeah, you
think
find
of,
out that guys like Josh Brolin. Sure.
it makes me think of
It's 7 o'clock.
your set at Oddball, which I've thought about more about the concept of, time is all we have. So kind of spending it at the show is a very special moment in general. So it makes me think about the interest in humanity you have for just every person you meet is another aspect of like, all we have is time. We're here together. So it might as well be meaningful conversation, you know?
Yeah, I think that is right on. And now I have to go in a little bit, but my neuropsychologist told me that I have trouble taking turns in conversations. And I wanted to tell her, sometimes people are asking me questions, so I have to kind of answer them. But I wanted to ask, do you have any other questions or any topics that you want to go over?
Let's see. Specific stuff, the philosophy stuff. I like the idea of, I was thinking about philosophy and introspection, and it seems like that's a concept that isn't generally accepted in the mainstream. People don't want introspection because I think deep thinking makes you realize that all the stuff being marketed to you is worthless.
Well, I think unless it's self-helping. So right
Okay.
now there's actually, I have some friends that are comedians who really have done a weird thing where they have moved towards the, hey, we're all good enough and it's important. And it's just a very strange left turn they've taken because it's marketable to have your comedy be okay with yourself and meditate and think on these things and you have everything you need. And so those are very introspective things, but they also have a marketability to them, and that's the reason you're hearing about them.
Right.
There's a lot of sort of social influencers that their whole thing is like, I know you, I love you, and don't give a fuck about what other people think, and don't care about it. And it's like, well, that's a weird thing to say because you do care about what people think because you're trying to get more followers and more subscribers.
Sure.
It's funny to me when it's like, hey man, all the haters, let them go. Don't even, if somebody has a problem with you, that's a problem they have with themselves. Okay.
Yeah.
You just do you be you, and success will follow because there's no one like you and you don't need anybody else. So smash the thumbs up, hit the subscribe link, forward it on if you want. And there's 2 more videos right here. And remember, new video every week. Tell your friends, tweet this one out, and please tell me what you thought of the video in the comments below. And it's like, what?
Yeah,
that is
100%.
totally what is happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's definitely hypocrisy in everybody alive. It's just to what extent it is. So, it's like we're all trying to minimize our issues as much as possible, but, for others it just gets out of hand. But, to stay oblivious to it too is really funny.
Yeah. My friend Nick Vatterott he does a lot of funny stuff in that realm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty funny. I never really thought about that before, that people do say like, don't worry about anybody else. You don't need anybody else. All you need is you. So smash the like button.
Yeah,
hit
but you
subscribe.
need me. Yeah, you need me though too. Everybody but us. We're in it together.
And I need you. This is how I make a living.
It is funny too that like, yeah, some of those influencers, they're the last person who would like talk to these people in public, If one of these wackos ran up to them, they'd be like, get the fuck away from me. But
yeah.
Especially
the ones that are kind of successful, and then other ones it's just sort of an act,
it is an interesting concept because it's like, I guess in a sense it is helping people if you just shoot positive messages at them, but it's like it helps for sure, but it's like
I always feel like if something's helping people, then more power to them. Keep doing
Yeah,
it.
which is kind of the idea of like organized religion, which is like, there's bad parts to of it, but if it's, if it's giving people reasons to keep going every day, then, then it's doing something right.
It's my feeling. Like everybody's sad,
Yeah.
everybody's lonely, everybody's afraid of death. There are these certain things where I'm just like whatever gets you through the day or makes you happy,
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, as long as
And
you're
I'm
not
reading
hurting anybody, go
Really
nuts.
interesting. Yeah, exactly. I'm reading this really interesting book called Against Everything
Okay.
by this guy Mark Grief and Grief and which is an anagram for grief, so that's kind of interesting. But
Cool.
he said one of his chapters is about he's like against exercise, against food, against all these types of things. That's kind of the approach that he takes.
Against food?
Really interesting. Yeah, he's kind of against the way that we think about food and look at food and the way that we go about food and our bodies and all this stuff. It's really, against exercise. He's like worse than a person at a gym who's just doing repetitive stuff and living by the numbers.
Right.
Is a runner. He's like, a runner is terrible. They won't even combine this weird self-masturbatory thing about making their body better. They're looking for something, not just, it's either health to try and live as long as possible, but not necessarily, live as long as possible, but at the expense of maybe enjoying a huge portion of your life because you're eating a certain way, doing it. And he hates runners because a runner doesn't even confine that shameful act to his own house or to a gym, gym with the mirrors and you're around other people and you're not even saying spot me and you look at somebody weird if they're watching you exercise. Well, then why are you can lift weights and do stuff at home, you know? And the runner kind of invades your space and you have to move out of the way of him. And he's like, you should be running. Look, I'm running. This is good for you. And I'm sweating and get out of my way. And he's not running from anything. So whereas if you saw a guy running and they're not in running gear, you'd be like, are you okay? What's going on? You think he's being chased.
Yeah, yeah.
But the second you see that they're in spandex and they've got their earphones in, it's kind of like, hey, fuck you, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is weird to be doing a survival tactic as a workout. It's like...
Yeah, that's why I like walking. Walking doesn't make anybody unhappy.
Yeah, walking's fine.
That's the best way to think about stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's something with stretching out all the limbs throughout the day that I think is good. The blood spreading around the body. That's good for sure.
I do a lot of stretching in public, actually.
Okay.
This guy probably wouldn't like me because I'll just stop and stretch.
It would remind him.
But I think that's actually more, I think it's funnier. I always get people looking at me like, okay, that guy's weird. He's just stretching and he's wearing a 3-piece suit.
Right, right.
Really, he's really stretching out those hammies for a guy who clearly is on his way to a meeting or something.
Yeah. Yeah, there definitely is something that helps in comedy about being loose or like physically engaged for sure. And I mean, it goes both ways though, because you'll still see a big fat guy who never moves be one of the funniest people ever. So it's like, I don't know.
I think comedically it just kind of depends on, just your sensibility. This Fran Lebowitz thing is really interesting because she talks about talent and how it's the only thing that you can't inherit. You can't work to get it. She's like, it's just sprinkled throughout the world.
Yeah.
And she makes the point of, well, if you don't have to, some people are talented but don't have the resources to cultivate that talent and bring it to the world.
Yeah.
It's like, but just as many people, are talented and figure out a way to do that. And I think that's the same with being funny. It's like,
yeah.
And they actually ask her, they go, how does one go about gaining a sense of humor?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, the same way somebody would go about gaining height. Next question.
Nice.
So it's really interesting that it's kind of like you sort of are funny or you're not. And then if you're funny, it's about really caring about it and wanting to cultivate it and make it into something that you can share with other people and ideally make a living with, But Kate is a person who, she's at the studio right now, and what she does is pretty esoteric. It's installation art. And so she's never really going to make a huge living off of it, probably.
Okay.
But I would say it's every bit as affecting to those people that engage, and because it really is engaging. You don't just look at her art; you kind of enter a space and you're interacting with it, even if you're not touching it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's every bit as affecting to people as anything that I do.
I mean,
I think the Emoji Movie is important, but I think what I think she does for a living is equally important and can be equally affecting.
Yeah, comedy definitely has a weirder trajectory. Like you were saying, when you start off, you'll be super dirty and weird. So like lower level comics, we're kind of seeing like strippers or whatever. But then, when you're really high up, then all of a sudden you're really renowned and it's like super special and stuff. But yeah, it's a weird one where you do kind of have to work your way out of this negative bias against you. If you're an amateur comic, you go, I'm a comedian. People are like, ugh, yikes. But it really depends.
It's like a stripper being like, I'm a dancer. And from my perspective, you are a dancer for sure, especially in some of these clubs.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking more of open mic comedians who are just trying
to
figure out if they're funny. I think, guys like you are sort of not only on the come up, but in a place where you already are comedians. And if you look at the general pool of people, you're like top 1 percentile.
Thanks, man.
If you think about how many people are trying to do that.
Yeah.
And the people that are trying to do it and are doing it. And then of those people, the ones that are really funny. Then of those people, the ones that are really original. And then of those people, the ones that have some intellect behind it. There's a very small percentage of the world.
It's true. Dude, speaking of the Emoji Movie, it actually got a shout out the other day on Jimmy Kimmel. Or no, it was Jimmy Fallon. I wanted to text you about it, because that was pretty cool. It was I forget.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was some sort of jab at the Emoji Movie. It was they were saying Betsy DeVos resigning with like a week left of the presidency is like walking out of the Emoji Movie with 5 minutes left.
Yeah. See, that's great.
Yeah, that's.
And I love that anyone talks about the Emoji Movie who isn't either a parent whose kid watches the Emoji Movie or an actual 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't have anything to do with you. It would be like me being like, I don't care for reading Schopenhauer in German. And it's like, well, you don't speak German.
Yeah, it's not
you
for
don't
you.
even really know who that is.
Yeah.
And you don't really read books. So I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're expressing your opinion with me about that.
Yeah.
But it's very funny. I also do these movies so that I have a funny stand-up credit before I go on stage.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, it is funny to also make something that becomes a global punchline as well. Like, that's special.
Yogi Bear 3D, buddy.
Dude, amazing. Absolutely. I mean, dude, Yogi Bear is such a fucking, it's such an epic cartoon. And you got to be the main guy. That's crazy.
Well, I think I'm the main guy. People say, Ranger Smith and Yogi Bear and even Boo Boo were important. But if you see the film, the Assistant Ranger Jones, my character, it was, and I won a Critics' Choice Award for it. Best supporting actor in a talking bear comedy.
There you go. There you go. Perfect.
I mean, I gave myself the award. I was hosting that year. But
nice.
It's an honor. It's an honor just to be nominated, and it's even more of an honor to win, and it's even more of an honor to have given myself the award.
Dude, when I lived in LA about 7 years ago now, my roommate worked for, I think it was A24 making trailers, and you hosted an award ceremony for, like, trailers. Yeah, and he said you showed up with, like, a bunch of beers in your suit jacket and, like, started pulling beers out of your jacket pockets, and, like, it was amazing. So that's pretty cool.
That was really, really fun.
Yeah.
And it was cool because it was like the Golden Trailer Awards. It was cool because I was like, sometimes the preview is better than the movie.
Oh, 100%.
Sometimes I just like watching a bunch of previews. It's an art form in and of itself. So that was really fun to be able to.
The Fast 9 movie trailer is absolutely amazing. Oh, I'm such a fan.
I love that you're a Fast and Furious guy. That's
dude, it's
funny.
so crazy. Dude, this is a real story, and I make a bit out of it. When I was in 8th grade, I was sad, and Tokyo Drift had just coming out. And I said out loud in a prayer one night, I said, as long as they keep making Fast and Furious movies, I won't kill myself. This was
Really?
15 years ago, dude, and they're still making them.
There you go.
I really bet on the right horse with that one. I don't know how I'm staying alive because of these movies.
I think
dude.
so. And I love that you stayed true to that 8th grader or whatever who
I want to make him
who
proud.
wanted that to happen. And you're like, the sense, hey, listen, they still hold up.
It's
Yeah.
I
Keep making them.
dude, they're the least racist movies. They win an award every time for least racist movie, which sounds like a weird award, but yeah, because it is, it's one of everybody in there. It's all about family. It's all about fun, happiness, whatever. So yeah, they're beautiful. They're beautiful action movies, dude. I'm a huge fan.
And cars. I mean, I love too.
Yeah.
They are about cars. That was the thing I learned about Transformers, was that Michael Bay really understood how important cars are to everyone, not just to guys.
Yeah.
And that the idea that you could have a car that you love that then you could talk to
Yeah.
and fight evil with was like such a brilliant concept for a film. And everyone
Hell
was
yeah.
like, really about the toys? And I said that once. I was like, about the toys, it's pretty strange, right? And he was like, I don't like to think of them as toys. They're aliens, okay?
Right.
They're like aliens from another planet, and that's how I see them. That was interesting too. I was like, okay, so you've wrapped your head around this in a way that it makes sense that it's a narrative, as much as Ridley Scott's Alien would make sense.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah. Thanks so much for talking to me, man. I think this is
It was great, man.
Yeah.
Let's do it again,
dude.
I
Please.
figured that you would not have anything in particular to talk about.
Oh no,
that
yeah,
seemed
just
exactly
a couple, basic outline. Yeah, because I mean, you have so much going on in your head as we talk every time. I mean, I feel like you could literally talk for hours at a time because your mind is going.
Yeah, that's what my
everywhere.
neuropsychologist says. But I am brain damaged, so.
Dude, I mean, I'm thoroughly
I don't blame me.
impressed by how much you know about so much. And I think you put in the effort, on purpose. You want to be knowledgeable on all these subjects, especially comedy. So you're doing this. You're doing this to continue to
Mania
build.
doesn't hurt. I'll tell you, having a manic disorder and that mania does not hurt.
Yeah,
it definitely makes you want to consume and think and do and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
just point that energy in a positive direction. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of having constant suicidal thoughts, which is the plight of other people that have mania. So
Yeah.
I feel very lucky. Well, listen, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for having me. I'm going to go over to my much more talented wives' space
Cool.
instead of this like pile of books and Duraflames. and yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm gonna go run an open mic now.
Awesome. I'm glad you didn't say I'm going to go running now.
No,
Go
yeah.
exercise outdoors.
This is much worse than running. Yeah.
All right, great. Well, tell everyone I said hi.
Will do. Thanks, man.
And good luck. All
We'll
right,
see
man.
you soon. Stay good. Bye.